Welcome to the Developing Dads podcast, where we're hitting episode number 44. It's Tuesday evening where we are. If this is the first time you're listening, I'm based in sunny Dunfermline and Gordon's down in London. And in this episode, we're going to be chatting about whether you should have kids or not, or exploring kind of our thought process in terms of how we came up with the idea of having kids, maybe some pros and cons, and
how we came up with the process of having kids. Is that what you just said, Neil?
The idea of having kids.
Oh, the idea. Okay, not
the prep.
And the prep. I mean, we're married men, so I think we knew what we were doing beforehand. But yeah, no, Neil's right. That was a lovely intro, Neil. I think you're getting better at it. So maybe I'll lay off the digging on my little brother when it comes to the intros, I guess. But yeah, I guess there's kind of like some of the things I want to explore would be like some of the ratios of stuff. Like people will be like, oh, what's it like not having kids? What's it like having kids? You know, the cost to incredible benefit, I think, you know, how does that weigh up? And then time, attention, sleep loss of ego, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm quite excited to explore on this one, I think, to be honest. Even though I just literally came up with it about 2 or 3 hours ago as a topic for today.
Yeah, I mean, I texted Gordon this morning. I was like, no idea what we were discussing, or I couldn't think of any ideas. Asked Rebecca, and she just came up with some silly ones. But we're here now. We'll start off like we always do, in terms of how's your week been, Gordon? It's been a week since we spoke.
It has been a week, and it was a very busy week. I keep coming on.
It always is, Gordon.
At some point, I'm gonna not be busy. I think next week might be a bit quieter. This week is not that much quieter, but it's a little bit quieter. So I'm hoping next week's maybe a little bit quieter because I've still got like editing and all sorts of things to catch up with. But yeah, busy week last week. So we had. I'm actually trying to think what I actually did.
Do that old trick of look at your calendar.
Yeah, I'm literally typing in now what I'm doing, what I did on my calendar. So I had a shoot. Yeah, we did a podcast on the Monday. We had our windows fitted, so they're all done. They cracked a glass thing in the house, so they had to come back and replace it. And they've got 1 or 2 other things to polish off, but they are in and they're done, and it's looking amazing. And the other big one was we had a floor installed, which is
nice.
It's amazing, actually. Like it's now a
Makes
space.
Makes it feel like a home.
Yeah, it really does, because the only thing we're missing is the skirting boards, and that's probably the finishing touch for now for the kitchen. Like there's a few other bits, but they're just upgrades rather than necessarily just feeling like a complete space. So the floor is just incredible. It took a while to get there. It is finally flat most of the area. It feels amazing. It looks amazing, and I'm so glad with the color that we went with, and the finish is great, and just really happy with it, Neil, quite frankly.
Nice. No snagging, or does it fit really well?
Yeah, it is. It's fine. Like you know what I'm like. I think you commented ages ago when I bought a coffee machine, and I bought the coffee machine, and the coffee machine takes very precise amounts of beans, like 18 grams of beans to do something, and a certain amount of seconds to do something, and whatever else. And you were just like, Gordon, it's 2 seconds. Like, why does that make a difference? I'm like, no, but the recipe says this. And then it's like, I'm looking at the cornering, finishing around the kitchen. I'm making sure that it's, pretty much lined up perfectly. The color is really good. Like I'm the worst nightmare for a tradesman when it comes to looking at details. Whereas Laura's just like, yeah, it looks fine, that'll do. Whereas I'm like, no, what is that? So anyway, the floor is done. It's amazing. If anyone's interested, if any dads are currently renovating their houses, then it's Antico Spacia. It's brilliant. It feels like wood under the foot, which is really weird. Like if you walked in, you wouldn't know it was plastic, basically.
But it lasts a lifetime.
Yeah, it's like at least 10. It's got like a lifetime warranty on it, I think. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. So that's the house stuff. That's pretty much it. That's done, and that feels incredible living here now. And I can't wait for you to see it whenever you come down, Neil. It's really amazing. Anyway, that's that done. And then the work thing, yeah, I did a whole day filming on Tuesday for an old client who signed up to a new retainer, so that was good. We got lots of content done. Then there was 2 things. I went to Birmingham, or a place called Crannock, which, here's an interesting story for you. And I'm pretty sure the chap who's part of this story won't listen to this podcast, but you never know. Anyway, I'm in a gym. Okay, Neil? I'm in a gym in this area near Birmingham. And I'm filming a chat for a bodybuilding training series as I do, the fitnessy type of thing that I'm on. So it's quite a small space. It's not a huge gym. Nice aesthetic. Very, very nice. And I'm kind of there, minding my own business. And this chap comes over and he says, "Excuse me, mate, can I borrow your camera?"
Wow. Your $5,000 camera.
And some. I had a few more than that. And he's like, "Can I borrow your camera?" And I was like, no. He was like, "Oh, but I just want to take a picture. Just quickly take a picture." And I was just like, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't lend out my camera. And he was getting quite irate. Like, he was quite angry about this, that I wouldn't lend him my camera.
Wow.
Now, what then happened was he said, "Well, I'm letting you use my gym for free." And I clocked it.
Oh, God.
I was like, right. So this is the gym owner who's asking me to use my camera or take a picture of something. And I was like, I was kind of mulling in my head. I was like, I could have handled it a little bit better and just gone, actually, this camera doesn't take any pictures. Because one of my cameras doesn't. It's a video camera. But equally, he could have come up to me and said, "By the way, I'm a photographer," because he is. He takes bodybuilding pictures and he goes to shows and does that kind of stuff. And he wanted to take a picture of something. And if he'd said, "I'm the gym owner, I'm also a photographer. I actually own a camera, but it's at home at the moment. Do you mind if I just borrow yours just for a minute to take a picture?" I more than likely would have been like, "Sure, mate, crack on." Like,
Yeah.
But it was just, I was in the gym and I was like, I thought I was going to die. Because it's a rough area, I tell you. It wasn't.
Anyway.
Anyway,
At the end, did you take the photo for him?
took the photo, yeah, gave him the memory card and he got his picture. And it was absolutely fine. And I didn't die. And I still have all my teeth. And I came home with no black eyes. So
Wow.
that was on the Wednesday. And then there's the PT project stuff that I've been working on with Jimbo and Paul. I wanted to do some, we got a little podcast with that as well. I'm not on the podcast. It's just those two. I edit it for them. But there's a guy called Cal Raystrick, who's like a very illustrious, I guess you could call him, bodybuilding coach. We wanted to do 3 sort of batch filmings with him for a podcast. So we did that, which was really good. So it was a bit of investment in that. But it was a long ass day. Like, I was up really early, didn't finish till late. Then on the Thursday, so it was Wednesday, then it was Thursday, I was at Ali's doing filming. And then on the Friday, I met up with my mate Ben, and he lives in New York, so I don't get to see him very well. He's going through a divorce, which is hard. So I really feel for him on that. So we were kind of talking about that. And I guess that's maybe a topic for a podcast at some point, is like, how do you maintain a relationship and whatever else, and if friends go through divorces and that kind of thing. So it was quite interesting to catch up with him about that. And I'm sad that I can't support him as well as I probably want to, but he lives in New York, so it's not like I can just go and see him on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then I was filming a part-time YouTuber Academy event, so that was sort of managing all the production stuff for that and filming it all and whatnot. So yeah, we got that done. And then Saturday was kind of a day off, where it was like looking after Olivia, doing some editing, and Laura really got into painting the shed. So we're now kind of just
Nice.
sprucing up the garden, so it's a nice view out of our bifold doors, which is good. And then I worked on Sunday all day at a bodybuilding show. So
Wow.
it's
Stark difference to my week.
yeah, it's just been. I think there's also part of me is considering, I'm in a service-based industry at the moment, so it's like, what do I do? Do I set up a production company and start managing teams of people and doing things like that and employing people and stuff? I don't know. I'm kind of mulling it over at the moment. Like, is the direction I'm going in right now a good one? It doesn't feel like it is. Just being really, really busy. I mean, I can make a lot of money doing it, which is great. But then it's not. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's smart, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's not scalable because you're the man behind the camera.
I think there's an element of like scalability. I think is overrated to some extent. Like, I get it. Part of my life is difficult to, manage because of the fact that I have to work for myself and I have to do the thing. But at the same time, it's a pretty good lifestyle business. Like, I can take time off whenever I want. I'm not accountable to anyone apart from my clients. I can dictate a lot of what I'm doing, and I can make a very good income. I can live perfectly comfortably.
maybe it's for another episode.
I think so.
Dive into it. There's a guy on YouTube that's come back called Jesse. I don't know if you know him.
I saw that. Saw that.
And his kind of comeback video was him filming a video for Snoop Dogg. And he started off like a YouTuber and stuff, and now he's got a film studio in LA. Just mad.
Yeah, it is interesting how YouTubers scale, right? How they go from just doing it for themselves to then building up these companies.
Now he's just a director. Like he just directs things.
Yeah, but sadly they have the monetary backing because of the fact that they did YouTube for that long. I don't think I'm going to have that quite yet. So, I don't know. We'll see. I'm trying to think of small things like how could I maybe outsource some of my work? You know, can I just be the face, film the things, do the stuff, and then maybe outsource some of what I'm doing? And even could I work in a head of production thing for people? Like I had, again, someone who I doubt very much will listen to this podcast. But you ever heard of a thing called Loom?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the co-founders, Cole, DM'd me on Instagram.
Wow.
Looking for a YouTube, like a filmer, editor, thumbnail person.
Nice.
So that kind of thing I'm considering is, could I then work within a consultancy basis in the sense of I'll find you someone to film you. I'll manage the process and the workflow of getting the content to an editor. I could find you an editor. I could find a thumbnail designer for you. I can find a strategist for you. And I'll just basically run your YouTube channel. So,
yeah.
Because I think there's something in that where, startup founders, for example, they'll create a business, right? And then they'll get to a point where they want to exit. And they'll exit for X amount of millions, right? Yeah. But what the hell do they do after that? Like, what do they do?
I know. Yeah.
So I think there's two things they can do. They can build a personal brand on, say, YouTube or Twitter or something in that realm, right? That will have a trickle-down effect into the thing that they're building, the app or the system or whatever there is. So there's, that will be easy for them to have a platform to promote on. But at the same time, when they exit and they make their $100 million, they have a personal brand. They have something to do. And one of the things that I think a lot of these guys go on to do is to like mentor people or teach people, because it's service of others that's ultimately the golden ticket, the golden goose that serves you so much intrinsically and extrinsically. So anyway, I'm sorry, I've gone off pace. I've just been chatting. How are you?
It's all good. I'm good. I'm very, very relaxed. My heart rate is probably the lowest it's been for a while. Anyway, what we've been up to in the last week.
You've got no kids, do you? You were in Skye and then you've got no kids now for a whole week. Are you off?
I'm off for 2 weeks, yeah.
Oh my word.
So, yeah, last week, just a normal kind of working week, and then finished up on Thursday. Took the kids to Skye on Friday, and hung out with them and my in-laws on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Did some sea swimming and just outdoor stuff, which was good. And then me and Rebecca went on a hotel stay Sunday evening on the way home, which was very nice. Just me and her. Nice meal. And then, yesterday we came home. Just, it's the oddest feeling, like when you've got 3 kids and it's constantly mayhem, and you walk into your own house and it's just silent. And there's
isn't it?
There's nothing
I had
much
that today.
to do.
I had that today, Neil. So the first time in maybe 2 weeks, I've actually had a day on my own.
Yeah, it's odd.
Where I woke up, obviously Laura got ready for work, and I kind of lay in. I didn't sleep very well. But then, I went downstairs. It was just me. I put the radio on.
Coffee when you want.
Took my time, had my dressing gown on. I had one call at 9:30, did that for 30 minutes. And then I just kind of did some bits, sat down, did some editing, did some things. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, so that was yesterday, and went over to our parents' house. They invited us over for dinner, which was nice. And then today, I've been on like productive mode. So I made a massive batch cook of meals. Went for a sea swim, because I do that now. I'm into my sea swimming. And
you're already having a midlife crisis at the age of 31.
Something like that. And me and Rebecca, actually, so like this is for another episode, but we've been going through quite a tough time with parenting and like different styles, and getting a lot of pushback from our 7-year-old daughter, Isla. And like, we're both at the realization that like something needs to change. So I listened to the book, Unconditional Parenting.
Before you continue, Neil, I think you could probably give a reasonable characterization of what Isla is like sometimes. She's very headstrong, isn't she?
Very. To anybody, not just to us. To
anyone.
To you, to my in-laws, to my grandma and granddad. But interestingly, so, I mean, we can get into this in a podcast, but she had her parents' evening last week. So Rebecca couldn't go because Ben was sick. That's another thing that happened last week. We had sickness. But I kind of deleted that from my head. So Rebecca couldn't go. I went, and like I kind of explained how Isla is at home and how she is like around other family members and the kind of hyperactivity and all that stuff. And she's like an angel at school, like social butterfly, puts her hand up, gets involved. Like there's no shouting, there's no kind of different mood swings. She's very inclusive. Yeah, it's wild. Anyway, I've listened to a book called Unconditional Parenting. I think it's a very, very good book. So Rebecca and I have been listening to that together over the last few days, just an audio book on her phone, sitting in the living room, listening to it. And it's just such a good reminder of like the parenting style that we want to adopt and we want our kids to grow up in. And like Alfie Kohn, who's the author of it, he starts with like, figure out what you want your kids to be like in 20, 30 years time. And then that should dictate how you parent day to day. So just a very fact finding.
That's a Jordan Peterson thing as well, is, you know, don't accept behavior that you wouldn't accept from an adult. Basically.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, a lot to unpick with unconditional parenting. It's not just a case of like you send them to your room and you go to timeout for 10 minutes because you've done something bad.
But you wouldn't say that, like you wouldn't say that to an adult. Like if you shouted at me and were rude to me, I wouldn't go, Neil, you're going to your room. Like, it's not going to happen. I would turn around to you and be like, you know, that made me feel like this. Next time, like,
and this is why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it's no different, I don't think. And I think it is a case of if you're not going to like that type of behavior when they're 18, 19, 20, then it's probably not a good idea to continue to allow it. And, you know, treat them as if they're 19, 20 and talk to them just like an adult and they'll listen like one. You know, like,
yeah, and like every aspect, like, and a lot of parents do this. They try and control every aspect of the kid's life, and like I think I've got a bit of a happy medium in terms of I let my kids have whatever they want for breakfast. I let my kids get dressed and wear what clothes they want, but I can make suggestions like, we want a healthy breakfast this time. Why do you want a healthy breakfast? Because if you ate sugar all day and honey all day, then it wouldn't be very good for you. So like I try to educate them. But anyway, we're getting on the same playing field. So we've been listening to that book, which we can delve into another podcast. And we've got nothing much planned for the kids are back on Thursday evening. So just chilling, just enjoying our own time.
Just doing a poo with the door open.
Something like that, yeah.
That is a real true sense of freedom, isn't it? When you do a poo with the door open.
Yeah, there's no lock on it. You can just enjoy.
Yeah, it's fun. I do it sometimes. My door opens out onto my toilet now, so I can't do it. The previous place I lived, the door actually opened slidey, so you just sit there looking out into the hallway. It's a much better view.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll get into this week's topic.
Yes. Yeah.
Where do you want to start?
Well, I think the biggest and first one has to be the how much a kid costs and what's the return of investment.
Yeah, I put that in one of my points as well.
You know, because that's got to be it. Is it, you know, the idea of it? Should you have kids, or is it worth it having kids? I don't know what the title of this would be, but it's often a question from unencumbered friends, usually male friends, where they'll be like, "Is it? Do you think it's worth having kids? Do you like having kids?" That's the type of question that comes along, and I actually find it quite difficult to answer because it's difficult because the financial cost, the time cost, the sleep cost, the sociable cost, the emotional cost, like there's so much that a kid takes from you. And that's hard to deal with, right? because it literally takes everything from you. And I'm sure I get into a few of those, but it takes everything from you. But then there's this weird thing where you turn around and go, it's the most incredible experience you'll ever do. You know, If we talked about in a podcast, remember we were talking about like if you spent £50,000 and it was the best experience of your entire life, or at least in your top 3, would you spend 50 grand? And I think most people would, wouldn't they?
Yeah, for sure.
Like if they had 50 grand, they would spend it. So it's like, imagine you have to give every single last ounce of your being, including financial and all the other things I talked about, but it will give you the most incredible experience you've ever had in your life. Would you do it? Some people might say no. They'd be like, actually, my life's pretty incredible already, and I've invested all this stuff into it.
It's hard when you stack up all those costs to somebody that's not had kids and say it's going to be the best thing you've ever done. Yeah.
And just, it's like, oh, by the way, you have to spend £1,000 on a wheelbarrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, or you're now about to spend more money per month on childcare than you might on your own mortgage. And there's no return. Like there's no like stock market, like there's no housing market's going up. There's nothing. It's money that just literally, like, you just might as well set it on fire.
I know.
So that's the thing. And I don't like, have you had friends like ask you, because I know you've got like colleagues, obviously got kids and stuff, but you were very young when you had Isla at first. So you must have been asked a few times, is it worth it?
Yeah, I think it became more when I had the second and third one. So if you're a new listener, I've got twins and a 7-year-old. So the twins are 4 and Isla came first, obviously, she's 7. And yeah, when the second and third came, they were like, is it worth having a second, or is it worth having 2 or 3? And that's a hard one to answer. Now, yes, absolutely. But again, during the time, and we can delve into like multiple kids and when you make a decision. But when I first had Isla, yeah, I was very young, but I felt like I had all the foundations. Like it wasn't a surprise to anybody because I had all the foundations in place in my eyes. So Rebecca and I were married. We had a deposit on our first house. We were waiting for it to be built. There was no kind of cracks, I'd say, in layman's terms, cracks in our relationship. Like we were pretty solid, and I think the foundations were good. And I think when we announced our pregnancy, yeah, I mean, was it a surprise to you? Like when you found out?
It wasn't a surprise.
Forget age.
It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was a surprise because, you know, I don't know how many married couples these days go for 10 years and not have a kid.
Yeah, and that was always in our intention. So I didn't get that question. Is my point is because I think people expected it. When I got to my work, like my colleagues at work and stuff, yeah, there's definitely people that kind of questioned why I was so young. But again, I just go back to like I was ready, like, and I don't know why. Like we've discussed in a lot of podcasts, but I think there's probably a reason somewhere. I'll find out in 10, 20, 30 years time of why I had kids young. Who knows? But yeah, I enjoy it.
All right. So is that you telling people your mates should have kids?
I think if you've got your foundation, like in my notes, I think the foundations are the most important thing. If you have a kid and there's a few cracks in your relationship, or you're rushing to have a kid because there might be a health reason, is it age, or is there some kind of health reason to do with IVF or something? And you're like, I think people that have IVF, like if the girl's under 30 or under a certain age, it's a lot easier. So there's people I know that have rushed into having kids, and I think, yeah, just be mindful if there's small cracks in your relationship, if there's trust issues, if there's any kind of things like that, then they're going to become massive when you have that child. They're going to materialize into something else.
Yeah, the whole kind of like, you know, is it ducks in a line, basically?
Yeah.
You know, financially, you probably want to have some sort of savings, you know, kicking around. I can't really say exactly how much. So if I'm saying, should you have kids? Well, there's a few little kind of assessments of your current lifestyle, I guess, to look at. Is, do you have some cash in the bank that means for 6 months you don't have to work, basically? Because your partner, or you even as a man, might have to take maternity leave or paternity leave, right? And then not in all jobs do you get a huge salary out of it or a paid leave or whatever it might be. Like Laura got statutory. That's all she got from maternity leave. So we basically had, I think it was 6 weeks pay, full pay or 90% pay. And then it was basically statutory from then on, which wasn't great. And then she was unpaid for like 3 months at the end of it. So do you have money in the bank? Do you have some savings? I think from the relationship front, I think, yeah, you need to be in a good place from a relationship. Like, there's got to be a foundation of love, respect, trust. And if that's not quite there, I think what a kid will do is basically just take a sledgehammer to that and carve it wide open, right? And I think also your living situation probably needs to be pretty solid. You know, and I say living situation, including, you know, are you near parents? Are you near friends? Are you near family? You know, because any kind of like difficulty to get to a parent or time that it might take to get to a parent, when they want to help or babysit or whatever else, that's, you know, you might think if it takes 10 minutes normally, it would take anywhere between 20 minutes and half an hour if you've got a kid, right? So if you've got to drive anywhere, do anything like that, then by all means, try and make that as easy as possible. But also your living situation, like, do you have the space? So not only do you have the space to have a kid so they can have their own room, for example, but also can you have a space enough for you to be able to escape? Like, can you go to your room and just chill out for half an hour, you know, while your partner looks after the baby? Or do you have a spare bedroom so someone can sleep in it? Like, there's lots of things like that, right, Neil? That I think having multiple bedrooms helps so much. So I guess not everyone has that privilege, but if you are, you know, to be fair, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably listening it to AirPods Pros or something like that on your iPhone. So, you know, at the end of the day, I think assessing that type of thing is probably a good idea before just jumping straight into it.
I think, an example that we did just before the twins came, we moved into this house we're in just now, a month before the twins arrived, and we've got a garage which is converted into like a playroom type thing by the previous owners. We made that a bedroom. So we put a bed in it, like beds of tables, and like that was a base for Rebecca's parents, my parents, to come down and help us, because I knew I wasn't going to be, wearing rose-tinted glasses, because I knew twins were going to be hard because I've already had one, and I'm going to need as much help as possible. Even though I don't want my mother-in-law living with me, she's going to live with me because I need help.
Basically, what you're saying is you created a bunker. A bunker in your house,
but made it comfortable for them. Like, I didn't expect them to sleep on the floor or blow up bed. Like, we put some money into it and made it comfortable.
What you're saying is you just tried to sell the vision, and you're like, we'll make this the nicest room possible with the most comfortable mattress and the nicest duvet and it's going to have candles in it, because then if we make it look like it's going to be fun and comfortable, then they'll come.
Yeah, exactly. And like, one of the things I put in my notes is, especially at the start when you're maybe trying for children or your wife or partner's pregnant, is being naive is probably a good idea, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong, that can be catch you off guard, and fair enough, you can do some amount of research or that kind of thing, but yeah, just hiding under a rock a little bit about certain things is probably okay.
Like what?
Like, don't overthink the sleepless nights. Don't overthink how hard a baby's going to be. Don't overthink how challenging a kid's going to be. Just, if you've committed to having a kid, there's no point of dwelling on it. So be naive.
Okay. I think I know what you mean. I'm not sure if it's naive necessarily, but okay. It's kind of like, I think what you're saying is the idea that you shouldn't set levels of expectation. Like, there shouldn't be our kid, it's going to work like this. It's going to go douche, 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 douche. You know, they're going to go to bed at 7, they're going to get up at this time, you know, they're going to be amazing, it's going to be absolutely fine. Or setting expectations for yourself to act in a certain way or do a certain thing, when actually, when a kid comes along, almost every rule book, apart from the medical one, basically gets thrown out the door. And you just do what you need to do.
Survive.
Yeah, you don't... I think that's got to be one of the biggest things that I took away from it. Certainly having a kid now, she's 13, 14 months old. It is that case of someone's like, should you have kids? And then it inevitably turns into, you know, what's it like having kids? And I used to judge some parents, and I'd be like, God, shut your kid up, it's a bloody flight. Or, why is this kid running around this restaurant? Or why is that dad holding the kid upside down when it's screaming? Or why are they urinating in the car park? All these kind of things. And you're like, what the hell are they doing? But now I'm just like, God, they're just trying to survive. Like, they've probably not slept for about 4 days. They don't know what they're doing. No one knows what they're doing. So sod it. Who cares if you don't know what you're doing? No one's right or wrong. Just crack on.
That's a very interesting one you brought up about like kids peeing. And the guy used to think, like, when I had just Isla, I was like, why are the parents letting them pee like by the side of a tree in the kids' park? That's just ridiculous. But now I've got 2 boys, and if we're miles away from a toilet or there's just no chance of going anywhere, then I'm going to let them pee outside of a tree. It's just like,
drop your drawers, lads. Off you go.
Yeah, it's just something you've got to do, and it's slightly more difficult with girls. But there's definitely been on occasion where I've been behind a tree with Isla.
Oh God, I fully expect that to happen.
Yeah,
and it's like, I think one of the other parts that was quite interesting from a question like, should you have kids, is how willing are you to sacrifice your ego even more? And I don't know if I've talked about it in this podcast, but maybe I have. I was talking about it to someone anyway. But I think that when I was in my 20s, I had a big ego, right? And I think some of us do, some of us don't, but I did. And that ego was, I want to be as successful as I can in my business. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to do everything I can. I'll do what I want, eat what I want, do what I want, basically all the time. And then at some point, you meet a girl you want to marry, and that chips away at your ego, right? It takes away, and you go, actually, she's more important than, or she or he, whoever it is, they are more important than my needs and wants and desires. So I prioritize theirs, right? I want to make them happy. So that takes away a bit of the ego. And then when you have a kid, you basically just stick a rocket to your ego and blow it up. Because now the woman that you love, who's had your child, now doesn't really care. It doesn't matter anymore. You don't really. You are but a person who can hold the baby when baby's tired,
or she's make tired. Them cups of tea, or make them dinner, or
cups of tea, make dinner, tidy up the house. Like, just, you got to do what you got to do, and then so you become very much like third fiddle to the whole thing. And even babies more reliant on mum. Certainly if it's breastfeeding, that kind of thing. So it's difficult to, actually be useful at anything other than just doing stuff in the house and whatever else. So I think as a father, or as a husband, or a boyfriend even, you've got to understand that your ego will disappear, and it has to. You're no longer going to be a priority, and you can't be like a petulant child or a teenager and be like, I want attention, I want you to love me. Like, that's not going to happen. You've just got to accept that for at least 6 to 12 months, you are literally going to be second fiddle for a long time.
Yeah, no, I think that's sound advice. And I think I say it a lot of episodes, but you see the Instagrammer dads that have just had newborns that are still lifting weights, and they're making a lot of sacrifice, and definitely there's going to be some cost to what they're doing, and I don't think everything's probably all right in their life, so don't be fooled by these guys that are nailing it online.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like, how do you have a newborn baby and go to the gym? I just, like, even just take it. I couldn't take an hour out, let alone half an hour.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Bear is a guy I've been following for years and years before he exploded, and he's had a newborn and he's still out crushing every mile. But like, he's also posting about like him being up feeding and like being a really hands-on. It's just like, yeah, I think these guys are wired differently. They're showing off a little bit, but then I get a bit of motivation from that. So if I've had a hard day or tired, I see that, I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it. These guys that are just smashing it is just, I don't know. It's hard to think, or it's hard to believe that there's not issues in his life.
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah. Like, there's got to be something, like digging away at him, but anyway.
Because it has been, like, we've said that pillars of priority, we've talked about that in I don't know what episode it was, episode 40 something. But we talked about like health being, up there as the highest one. But it's a selfish, you have to be selfish in that vein. And
That's not when you've got a newborn. You can't be like that's not a newborn priority.
No way, no chance. You know, imagine you having the twins and then just going to Rebecca. Oh, by the way, I'm off for a run. I'm just going to go for a run for an hour and a half. You've been up, and they've both been up since 2 a.m. Like, I don't care how much grind you've got in you. That is just selfish.
Yeah, exactly. There's something there that's not right, working out. One question I wanted to delve into is, should you have multiple kids, or like what's that thought process of having your second child or third child? How lucky I was.
It's not, for me right now, it's not too dissimilar to, the same question of should you have one kid.
I think
it's probably an easier decision, I'd have thought, because you've now got a little bit of an experience where you can say, yeah, I like it or I don't like it. Like, some people might just absolutely hate the experience so much that they never want to see another kid again, which I completely understand because it's hard.
Yeah, but I think that there's another level that comes into it. And our thought process was took Isla's being into consideration. We never wanted her to be a lonely child because, I mean,
lonely child and an only child.
Only child.
Okay.
Because I know how much fun, although we had lots of fights, how much fun it was having a brother and having kind of that family unit. And I feel that I've got a few friends that are, or maybe not friends, but people that I'm aware of and I grew up with that didn't have any brothers or sisters. And I know colleagues who don't have any brothers or sisters, and they missed that connection. Like, I've got a really good friend of mine that he's always kind of wondered if he had a brother, how he would have turned out or how he would have been. And he kind of is a bit regretful in terms of seeing families and stuff. And that was a big decision for us.
I think there's something in that for me as well as the only child syndrome thing. You're always weighted hand on foot, and that's not what life is about, right? You don't.
You do notice it, especially in adults.
Yeah, you don't have two people just handouts all the time. That's just not how life works. But I think the process has been very similar to, because we're obviously thinking about if we want to try and have another kiddo, which I think we definitely do want to do that. It's just what's the good timing. Do we want there to be 2 years, 3 years, 4 year gap between kids? Do we feel financially okay about it? Do we feel, from Laura's career perspective, does she want to do a bit more career before we have another one? Yeah, I don't know. It's like there's just, and then there's also, I think, Laura's considerations, and she'd be definitely in a better place to talk about it. But it's pretty traumatic having a kid for a woman, really traumatic. And I think she's wants to have another child, but at the same time, she's like, holy shit, if I have to do that again, then it's a different story. But I don't know. I think
if somebody was going to tell you, you're definitely going to have twins, would that change your mind?
Well, I'd start making sure the upstairs second bedroom is the comfiest bedroom with the nicest duvet and fresh flowers every day. So, no, I think what I've tried to do is there's a book that was recommended to me called Design Your Life, and
it sounds
but it kind of is like I didn't have to live in Colston South, did I? I didn't have to live here.
Yeah.
I could have lived anywhere else in London. Like we had a big enough budget to do whatever. We pretty much lived wherever we wanted in the country. Quite frankly, we could have moved back to Scotland. Who knows? But I know that one of the greatest life hacks is to move closer to your in-laws.
Gordon Greenhorn's life hack 101.
But it is like you literally had your mother-in-law live with you when the twins came. Like that was a hack. So I must say that what I've tried to do when I do consider about the kids is I've gone through all those pillars that I talked about. The financial aspect of things, the emotional aspect of things, the relationship aspect of things, the living situation, and I've got all those box ticked. I'm a bit poorer than I probably was before I had Olivia, but we bought most of the stuff already. Like, we don't have to buy another pram, we don't have to buy another car seat, we don't have to buy another playmat, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I guess should you have another kid, then it's got to be all those things as well. Like, I definitely don't. I'm absolutely sure I don't think it's a good idea to have a kid if your living situation isn't good, if your partnership relationship isn't good, if you're rushing things again. Like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty sound advice. Let me look through the notes. If you got anything that you want.
They like someone says to me, should you have kids? And I'll be like, okay, well, how good are you at suffering? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And one of the biggest and one of the hardest parts is when you lack sleep, right? I hate not being able to sleep very much, and it's difficult. But yeah, you'll basically be up. You might be up maybe multiple times in the night. You know, certainly Laura was when she was breastfeeding in the early time. So, are you okay with that? Like, are you going to be okay with like sleep deprivation? Like, do you feel like you're able to overcome difficulties in your life? You know, oh, I don't want to go to the gym, but you still went to the gym. Oh, I went for a run when I didn't want to go for a run. Or I get up early when work needs me to go in early. You know, I work late when like those kind of things where there's an element like, are you a resilient person? Because you're going to need to become a bloody resilient person if you want to have children, because they'll beat the living crap out of you, even though they're only about 5 kilos and can barely even lift their head up.
Yeah, it's kind of comes back to that maturity level. Like, I don't know how you define that. Like, what is the right maturity level? But I felt when I was 23, 24, when I had Isla. Yeah, 23. She's seven now. I felt like I was quite a mature 23-year-old. If I compared myself to my friends, I'd had a full-time job for 4 years, went from public sector to private sector, worked in oil and gas, had like a decent salary. And the other 23-year-olds were just coming out of uni, or they were working in Wetherspoons or Tesco. So yeah, like, I think level of maturity helps. Definitely.
Just, I guess, some level of experience to some extent, maybe.
Yeah, like holding down a job and earning a salary for a number of years, and like going to work, and yeah, as you say, like getting up early if you need to get up early, or working late if you need to work late. Like, just being I would say a really contradictory thing, that like, just be a man, but I can't say that anymore.
No, because what does that mean? I guess, but
yeah.
And then the other thing, like talking about resilience aspect of things, is, you know, when your girlfriend, your boyfriend's ill, it's hard, and you've got to look after them. And thankfully, touch wood, both of us have never really either had to look after each other or our wives or any sort of significant person in our family. Everyone's pretty good on the whole. But kids get sick and they have complications, and they have complications that you can't do anything about. You know, and again, I'm talking about that resilience thing, I guess, and that's maybe a bit of a trend of this section. But, you know, terrible things can happen. And even if they don't happen, you still have that like gut-wrenching worry that sits in you. You know, when I started this podcast talking about the sort of the cost to incredible benefit ratio, where, you know, the cost is so significant that you can find yourself in sleepless nights worried about something. Like, I know Olivia had a thing with her heart where there's like a little whole thing that was going on, and we didn't know anything about it, and we were waiting for the sort of specialist scans and things that were going on, and that was horrible. Like, I thought about it. I tried not to think about it, but because you know, you control the controllables, but it's hard not to think about it. You know, she's not even born yet, and I was worried. And even now, like, her monitor's over there, and every time I'll look at the monitor just a little bit to see if she's still breathing.
Yeah.
Like, it's terrifying, isn't it? And then someone says to you, should you have kids? You'd be like, do you reckon you can cope with thinking that your kid, when they're asleep and they're perfectly fine, might actually not be alive? They might be not breathing. Like, that's terrifying.
You get that, what is it, SADS? Basically the cot death thing is just terrifying, especially when
terrifying. It's all terrifying, Neil. Like, it's the worst terrifying thing you've ever have to go through. So it's like, you know, but by the way, I think, Neil, by the end of this podcast, no one's going to want to have kids.
I know, it comes back to my point of like being naive. Don't listen to us. Like, just think it's all rose-tinted glasses and just go in with blindfolds on.
Yeah, because, you know, because it is great. Like, that's got to be part of this sort of roundup of this entire podcast. Is basically like, sure, it's going to cost you a lot. And there are going to be parts of it that, quite frankly, I sometimes don't want to hang out with Olivia, right? Don't want to hang out with her because she's screaming at me, won't like just let me let her play on her own, like all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, she's my best mate. Do anything for her.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's the proudest moment when you might have some challenging times at home. And Isla's one example I might brought up at the start, but when I was sitting in the parents' evening and like I'm being told like my daughter's a social butterfly, she looks out for other people, like she asks questions a lot, and like it makes you so proud. Like it just there's no other feeling that somebody that you've brought up is doing well in school.
Yeah, it's great. Like, you know, so if I said to you, or if your mate tomorrow said to you, should you have kids? What would you say? Yes or no?
I'd start with a yes, but then I'd caveat it with like, what's the foundations like? Like we mentioned at the start, like how's your relationship? You know, I'm not like somebody that's advocating you need to be married, buy your first house, do all that kind of stuff first, but just make sure the basics are in place. Like you've got cash in the bank, there's no cracks in your relationship, you've got trust there. If there's not that, then sort that out first. Like go to counselling, just figure those things out, save a bit of money, and make sure those things are in place. What about you?
Would I say should you have kids? Yes or no? I would definitely say yes, because you know you can
What's
go
life without it?
Yeah, like, what are you gonna do? What else are you gonna do? Because once you've eaten a Michelin star meal, once you've stayed in a 5-star hotel, once you've flown first class, business class, whatever, once you've seen countries in the world, once you've seen a lovely mountain, when you've seen a lovely lake, when you've seen a lovely bridge, I don't know, whatever. Like, at what point, like, what more are you gonna do? And you know, I know even before I had children, I was extremely happy. Like, I'd met the woman of my dreams. I'd traveled the world with her. I'd built a business on my own, multiple parts of businesses, earned decent money, like bought a house. They're not all the classic things that you hope to achieve. And then I had a kid, and I was like, holy moly, there is like a different dimension of happiness. You know, I was in like the sphere of happiness. I'm like, I'm cool. Like I can just live like this for the rest of my life. I'll be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way that I can become happier. And then suddenly I have Olivia, and we have this little family, and it's unreal. Like it's a whole, I can't even describe sometimes what it's like outside of that happiness that I had to where it is now. It's like on a whole benchmark of dimension difference.
Yeah, I definitely get that. When we're all kind of in bed at night time, away to go to sleep, there's that feeling of like you've got, well, including Rebecca, or you've got 3 kids under your roof that you're kind of fending for, bringing up, raising. They're all fast asleep in a cozy house, and yeah, I don't know, there's something really satisfying and really homely and wholesome about that.
Nuts, isn't it? It's nuts. So it's quite easy to be able to say that and be like, absolutely. Like, you know, why? Like, I get it. I get it. The cost aspect of having a child from all those things we talked about is tough to swallow and consider, but it's very easy to get over all of that as soon as you get the first ever smile out of your son or daughter. When they look at you and they give you that weird kind of like, I'm either doing a poo or I'm farting, but they smile. Yeah. And that just melts the whole first awful 3 months of your life. Of their life.
Yes. On that note, do you want me to round up?
Yes, I think that's a good idea. It's been a good pod, a wholesome end to that pod, I think, Neil.
It was a nice one. Hopefully people have taken something away. If you've enjoyed it, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever. Just like that 5 stars would be nice. If you've got any questions for us, you can chat to us on Instagram. I'm not going to commit to it, but I might start some reels up now.
Oh my word.
Like, I was thinking about this actually, because now I've got lots of time to just think and contemplate things because I don't have any kids just now. I just need to get, like, I made the process of getting them off Riverside into another 2, like, so convoluted, and so it was just a messy workflow. So,
and that's always the thing. Like, if you make, I mean, this is probably for a completely different podcast, but who cares? We can talk about it. It's like, if you make it difficult to do the thing, you're just not going to do it, and especially if you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
You know, sure, like this podcast is almost perfect, right? Where sometimes we've got to think of ideas and we've got to think of stuff to talk about, which, you know, sometimes a little bit tricky, But for us to sit down and film something, like we literally have to plug in 2 wires, microphone, talk. And then I edit it. It's all AI stuff and automated and whatever else. And that's it, isn't it? Like, it's done.
Yeah, super easy. Super easy. But I'd like to get some reels out.
Yeah, and if it was more complicated, it'd be a difficult one. And actually, note on that, we were supposed to be doing today was supposed to be the day we did a fancy one, Neil. But sadly, didn't happen.
It was. I've got my, I meant to have a quarterly meeting in London for work, but it was moved to Edinburgh. So it's on Thursday. So, yeah, it's a shame. But I'll hopefully be down soon.
Yes.
We'll get the fancy one in.
Yes. All right. Well, yeah, thanks for listening. Give us a like on Instagram. Watch us on YouTube if you want to see our shiny faces. And we'll see you in the next one, shall we? Cheers, Neil.
Cheers.